They say you never really know someone until money's involved. I learned that lesson at 73 years old, lying in a hospital bed with pneumonia, watching my own children walk through the door with measuring tape in their pockets and greed in their eyes. My name is Vivian Crawford, and this is the story of how I gave away $1 million home to spite my own flesh and blood, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city and state in the comments. It helps me feel less alone in all of this. It was a bitter February morning in Charleston, South Carolina when everything changed. I'd been in the hospital for 5 days, struggling to breathe, my lungs filled with fluid. The doctors said it was touch and go there for a while. I'm not ashamed to admit I was scared, terrified actually. At my age, pneumonia isn't just an inconvenience, it's a death sentence waiting to be signed. I kept my phone on the nightstand, checking it obsessively, waiting, hoping. Surely my children would come, surely they'd heard. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had called them all. I knew she had because she told me so, squeezing my hand with tears in her eyes. But day 1 passed, then day 2, then 3. The nurses were wonderful, especially one, Angela Martinez. She was maybe 40 years old with kind brown eyes and the gentlest hands I'd ever known. Every time she came into my room, she'd ask how I was feeling, and she actually waited for the answer. She'd brush my hair back from my forehead when the fever made me sweat. She'd hold my hand during the worst coughing fits, whispering that I was strong, that I was going to make it through this. "Your family must be so worried," she said on day 3, adjusting my IV. "When are they coming to visit?" I didn't know what to say. The truth was too humiliating. "They're busy," I managed, my voice hoarse from the oxygen mask. Angela nodded, but something in her eyes told me she understood. She'd seen this before. The elderly patients with absent children. It was more common than anyone wanted to admit. On day 4, I started to improve. The antibiotics were finally working. My breathing came easier. The doctor said I might be able to go home in a few days if I continued to progress. That's when they showed up. I heard them before I saw them. Voices in the hallway, my daughter Patricia's sharp laugh that had always reminded me of breaking glass. Then my son, Michael's deep rumble. They burst into my room like a storm, all smiles and, "Oh, Mom, we've been so worried." But I noticed things. Small things that might not mean anything to someone else, but meant everything to me. Patricia's eyes barely touched my face before scanning the room, lingering on the window with its view of the historic district. Michael didn't hug me. He patted my shoulder like you'd pat a dog, his attention already wandering to his phone. And when they thought I drifted off to sleep, I heard the words that would change everything. "So," Patricia whispered, "who gets the house?" My eyes were closed, but I was wide awake. Every word they spoke landed like a knife between my ribs. "The house has to be worth at least $1 million now," Michael said, his voice low but excited. "Maybe more. That neighborhood's exploded in value." "I should get it," Patricia hissed. "I'm the oldest, and frankly, I need it more than you do. Derek's been out of work for 6 months and the bills are piling up." "Oh, please. Your husband's out of work because he's lazy. At least I have a real job. Besides, I'm the one who visited her for Christmas." "You stayed for 2 hours, Michael. 2 hours. And you spent most of it in the garage looking at Dad's old tools." I wanted to scream. I wanted to sit up and throw them both out. But something made me stay still, stay quiet. Some instinct told me I needed to hear all of it. "Look, we need to be practical about this," Patricia continued. "She's not going to last forever. She's 73 and just nearly died from pneumonia. We need to start planning." "Has she updated her will recently?" "How should I know? She won't talk about it. Every time I bring it up, she changes the subject." "Well, one of us needs to push the conversation. We can't just wait around and hope for the best." There was a pause. I could hear the shuffling of feet, the rustle of a jacket. "Maybe we should try to get power of attorney," Michael suggested. "You know, just in case she becomes, incapacitated." "That's actually smart. If she's not thinking clearly, we could make decisions for her. Medical decisions, financial decisions. Exactly, for her own good, of course. Of course, Patricia echoed, and I could hear the smile in her voice. They left shortly after that, each giving me a quick peck on the forehead like I was already a corpse they were preparing to bury. They promised to come back soon. They promised they loved me. Every word was a lie, and we all knew it. After they were gone, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling tiles. 47 years of motherhood, 47 years of sacrifices. I'd worked 2 jobs after their father died to keep them in good schools. I'd paid for Patricia's wedding, all $30,000 of it. I'd co-signed on Michael's first house when no bank would take a chance on him, and this was my reward. Vultures circling before I was even dead. Angela came in about an hour later for my evening medications. She took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. "Mrs. Crawford, are you all right? You're crying." I hadn't even realized the tears were falling. I wiped at my face with shaking hands. "I'm fine," I lied, "just tired." But Angela didn't move. She pulled up the chair beside my bed and sat down, taking my hand in both of hers. "I've been a nurse for 18 years, she said softly, "and I've learned that sometimes fine means anything but. You don't have to tell me what's wrong, but you also don't have to pretend with me." Something about Angela's kindness broke through the dam I'd built. Maybe it was the pneumonia weakening my defenses. Maybe it was the crushing loneliness of realizing my own children saw me as nothing more than an inheritance. But whatever it was, the whole story came pouring out. I told her everything, about their conversation, about the house, about how they hadn't visited me in 8 months before this hospital stay, and even now they'd only come to calculate their future windfall. Angela listened to every word, her hand never leaving mine, her eyes full of a compassion I hadn't seen in my own children's faces in years. "I'm so sorry," she whispered when I finished. "You deserve so much better than that." "The worst part is, I knew," I admitted. Deep down, I knew they'd changed. I knew they only called when they needed something. But I kept making excuses for them. I kept telling myself they were just busy, just stressed, just dealing with their own lives. "You're their mother. You wanted to believe the best of them. That's not a failing, Mrs. Crawford. That's love. A love they clearly don't return." Angela was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that would stay with me forever. "Family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up, who holds your hand when you're scared, who sees you as a person, not a paycheck." Over the next 3 days, as I continued to recover, I had a lot of time to think. Patricia and Michael didn't come back. They'd send texts, brief, impersonal things asking how I was feeling, but they didn't visit. They'd gotten what they came for, confirmation that I was alive, and a chance to scout out their future inheritance. Meanwhile, Angela was there every day. She wasn't even assigned to me anymore. Her rotation had changed. But she'd stop by on her breaks, bringing me cups of real coffee instead of the hospital swill, sitting with me during the lonely evening hours when the hospital felt like a tomb. She told me about her life. She was a single mother of 2 teenage boys. Her husband had died in a car accident 5 years ago, and she'd been raising them alone on a nurse's salary. It wasn't easy, but she made it work. Her boys were good kids. One wanted to be a doctor, the other a teacher. "You must be so proud," I said. "I am, but they're not perfect. They're teenagers. They drive me crazy sometimes. But they're kind. That's what matters to me, that they're growing up to be kind." I thought about my own children. Had I failed somehow? Had I raised them to be selfish? Or had I simply loved them too much, given them too much, never taught them the value of struggle? On my last day in the hospital, Angela helped me pack my things. The doctor had cleared me to go home, with strict instructions to rest and follow up with my regular physician. "Do you have someone to help you at home?" Angela asked. "Family, friends?" I almost laughed at the irony. "I'll manage," I said. I returned to my house on Trad Street, a beautiful 3-story historic home that my late husband Thomas and I had bought for a song back in 1982. Back then, Charleston's historic district was just starting its revival. Now these homes were worth fortunes. Thomas had been dead for 15 years, heart attack at 58, gone before he could even retire. We'd planned to travel the world together. Instead, I'd traveled it alone, taking cruise after cruise, trying to fill the emptiness. The house felt enormous and hollow as I walked through the door. Mrs. Patterson had kindly stocked my refrigerator and turned on the heat, but it still felt cold, unwelcoming. I spent the next few days recovering, mostly sleeping and watching television. Patricia called once, asking how I was feeling. The conversation lasted 3 minutes. Michael sent a text. "Glad you're home. Take care." Not, "Can I bring you groceries?" Not, "Do you need help with anything?" Just, "Take care." It was Angela who called to check on me on her day off, making sure I was taking my medications and eating properly. "You don't have to do this," I told her. "I'm not your patient anymore." "I know," she said, "but I worry about you, Mrs. Crawford. Is that okay?" No one had worried about me in so long that I actually started crying again. "It's more than okay," I managed. 2 weeks after I came home, Patricia and Michael showed up unannounced. Together. That should have been my first warning sign. They barely tolerated each other on the best of days. They brought flowers and a casserole, all smiles and concern. We sat in my living room, the room where Thomas and I had hosted countless Christmas mornings, birthday parties, family gatherings. "Mom, we need to talk to you about something important," Patricia began, using that gentle voice people reserve for children and the senile. My stomach dropped. "We've been thinking," Michael continued. "You're not getting any younger, and this house is just too much for you. All these stairs, the maintenance, the property taxes. We think you should sell it," Patricia finished. "You could move into a nice retirement community, something with medical staff on site, activities, people your own age. Wouldn't that be nice?" I looked at them both. Really looked at them. Patricia wore a designer handbag I knew cost more than most people's monthly rent. Michael had a new watch that probably cost as much as my last hospital bill, and they wanted to lecture me about property taxes. "And what would I do with the money from selling the house?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. They exchanged a glance. They'd rehearsed this. "Well, you'd need some for the retirement home, of course," Michael said. "But the rest, we thought it might be good to start distributing your estate now, for tax purposes." "Tax purposes," I repeated. "It's just smart." "Planning, Mom," Patricia added. "This way, you can see us enjoy it while you're still alive. Wouldn't that be wonderful?" I stood up, my legs still shaky from the pneumonia, but my resolve iron strong. "Get out," I said quietly. They stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "Mom, we're just trying to help." Michael started. "Get out." "You're being unreasonable," Patricia snapped, her mask slipping. "We're trying to have a rational conversation about your future, and you're acting like a child." "My future?" I laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even me. "This isn't about my future. This is about yours. This is about you two circling like vultures, waiting for me to die so you can cash in." "That's not fair," Michael protested, but he had the decency to look ashamed. "Isn't it? When was the last time either of you visited me before I ended up in the hospital? When was the last time you called just to talk, not to ask for money or favors?" Silence. "I was in that hospital for 5 days before you showed up. 5 days. I could have died, and you couldn't be bothered to drive across town. But the minute I was on the mend, there you were, already planning how to divide up the house." "We have lives, Mom," Patricia said coldly. "We have responsibilities. We can't just drop everything every time you get a little sick." "A little sick? I had pneumonia. I could barely breathe." "But you're fine now, aren't you? You're always fine. You're strong as an ox. You'll probably outlive us all." The bitterness in her voice was shocking. She actually resented the fact that I'd survived. "I want you both to leave," I said, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. "And don't come back unless you can remember that I'm your mother, not your retirement plan." They left in a fury, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood in the sudden silence of my empty house and felt absolutely nothing. No regret, no sadness, just a vast, empty numbness. But numbness didn't last. By that evening, it had transformed into something else entirely: determination. I called my lawyer first thing the next morning. Edward Thornton had handled my affairs for 20 years. He'd written my will, managed my late husband's estate, and helped me navigate every legal challenge that had come my way. "Vivian," he said warmly when his secretary put me through, "how are you feeling? I heard about the hospital." "I'm fine, Edward, but I need to make some changes to my will. Major changes." There was a pause. "I see. Would you like to schedule an appointment?" "As soon as possible." We met that afternoon in his office on Broad Street. I told him everything: about the hospital, about my children's conversation, about their visit demanding I sell the house. Edward listened, his expression growing grimmer by the minute. "I'm sorry, Vivian," he said when I finished. "No parent should have to face this." "I want to change my will," I said firmly. "I want to leave the house to someone else." "All right. Who did you have in mind?" I took a deep breath. "Angela Martinez, the nurse who cared for me in the hospital." Edward's eyebrows shot up. "That's certainly your right. But I should warn you, your children could contest this. They could claim undue influence, diminished capacity." "Let them try," I said firmly. "I'm 73 years old, Edward, not senile. I've never been more clear-headed in my life. I want every penny of my estate to go to Angela Martinez, except for $1 each to Patricia and Michael." $1 each? It's symbolic. It shows I didn't forget them. I actively chose to disinherit them. Edward leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Vivian, I have to ask, are you absolutely certain about this? This will destroy your relationship with your children." "What relationship?" I asked bitterly. "They haven't treated me like a mother in years. I'm just a bank account to them, an inconvenient obstacle between them and their inheritance." "Even so, this is a significant decision. Maybe you should take some time to think about it. Wait a few weeks. Make sure this is what you really want." I've had 73 years to think about what kind of person I want to be, Edward. I don't want to be the kind of person who rewards greed and cruelty. I want to be the kind of person who recognizes true kindness when I see it. He nodded slowly. "All right then, let's draft the new will." We spent the next 2 hours going over every detail: the house, the savings accounts, the stock portfolio Thomas had left me, the life insurance policies. Everything would go to Angela. I also drafted a letter to be read with the will, explaining exactly why I'd made this choice. But I didn't stop there. I had another idea, one that would require perfect timing and a bit of theatrical flair. "Edward," I said, "I don't want to wait until I'm dead for this to take effect. I want to give Angela the house now, as a gift." "That's unusual. There would be significant tax implications." "I don't care. I'll pay whatever taxes are necessary. I want to see her face when she realizes what I'm giving her. And more importantly, I want Patricia and Michael to know that their greed costs them everything." Edward actually smiled. "You know what, Vivian? I think that's the best idea I've heard all year. Let me draw up the paperwork." Before I left his office, I asked him one more question. "Can we keep this quiet for now? I want to tell Angela myself in my own way." "Attorney-client privilege," he assured me. "Your secret is safe." Over the next few weeks, I set my plan in motion. I called Angela and asked if she'd be willing to check on me occasionally, help me with some errands. She agreed immediately, refusing any payment. "You're my friend, Mrs. Crawford," she insisted. "Friends don't charge friends." If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more tales of justice and redemption, please subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me. Angela would stop by twice a week after her shifts. We'd have tea and talk for hours. I learned more about her in those few weeks than I'd learned about my own children in years. She was working double shifts to save for her son's college funds. She volunteered at a homeless shelter on her days off. She was exactly the kind of person I'd hoped to raise. Meanwhile, Patricia and Michael were becoming increasingly aggressive. They'd call me, sometimes separately, sometimes together, always with the same agenda. I needed to sell the house. I needed to be reasonable. I needed to think about their futures. "We're your children," Patricia said during one particularly heated call. "Doesn't that mean anything to you?" "It used to," I replied, before I realized that, for you, it only means something when there's money involved. She hung up on me. Michael tried a different approach. Guilt. "Dad would want you to take care of us," he said. "He worked so hard to build a good life for this family. Don't you want to honor his memory?" "Your father would be ashamed of both of you," I said quietly. "He would be ashamed of what you've become." The calls became less frequent after that, which suited me fine. I was busy, anyway, working with Edward to transfer the deed to the house into Angela's name. The paperwork took weeks to process, but finally everything was ready. I invited Angela over for tea on a Saturday afternoon in late March. Spring had come to Charleston, filling my garden with azaleas and wisteria. The house had never looked more beautiful. "Mrs. Crawford, this is lovely," Angela said, settling into one of my porch chairs with a cup of Earl Grey. "But you didn't have to go to all this trouble." "Angela, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting, no matter how strange it seems." Her smile faded. "Are you okay? Is it your health?" "I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. But I need you to understand something. Over these past few months, you've shown me more kindness and genuine care than my own children have shown me in years. You didn't do it because you wanted something from me. You did it because that's who you are, a genuinely good person. Mrs. Crawford, please, let me finish." I took a deep breath. "I've made a decision about my estate, about this house." I saw the flicker of discomfort in her eyes. She thought I was going to ask her to witness my will or something equally morbid. "I'm giving it to you," I said simply. "The house, everything, it's yours." Angela actually laughed, thinking I was joking. "That's sweet of you to say, but—" "I'm not joking." I pulled out the folder of documents Edward had prepared. "The deed is already transferred. This house is legally yours as of yesterday. All you have to do is sign these papers accepting the gift." The color drained from her face. "You can't." "Mrs. Crawford, this is insane. This house is worth about $1.2 million according to the most recent appraisal, plus another $400,000 in savings and investments that are also now in your name." Angela stood up so fast she nearly knocked over her teacup. "No, absolutely not. I can't accept this. Your children." "My children have made it abundantly clear that they only value me for my money. You valued me as a person. You held my hand when I was scared. You cared for me when no one else would." "But Mrs. Crawford, I was just doing my job." "No," I interrupted firmly. "You went far beyond your job. You visited me on your days off. You called to check on me. You became my friend when I had none. That's not a job, Angela. That's genuine human kindness, and it's rarer than you think." Angela sat back down, her hands shaking. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll accept it. Say you'll use it to give your boys the future they deserve. Say you'll let me do this one good thing before I die." "You're not dying." "We're all dying, sweetheart. Some of us just have a better idea of the timeline. I'm 73. I beat pneumonia this time. But there will be a next time. And I'll be damned if I let Patricia and Michael get their greedy hands on what Thomas and I built." Angela was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "This is too much. It's too generous. I don't deserve— You deserve every bit of it. And you know what the best part is? I get to see you enjoy it. I don't have to be dead for you to benefit from my generosity. I get to watch you build a life here, watch your boys grow up in this house. That's worth more to me than any amount of money." She signed the papers with shaking hands. We sat together on that porch for hours, planning her future. She could keep working as a nurse if she wanted, but without the crushing burden of rent and bills. Her boys could go to college without drowning in debt. She could finally breathe. "When will you tell your children?" she asked quietly. "Soon," I said. "Very soon." I waited another week, letting the reality of the transfer settle, making absolutely sure all the legal documents were filed and recorded. Then I invited Patricia and Michael over for dinner. They came, probably hoping I'd finally agreed to sell the house. They were almost friendly, that's how confident they were. We ate pot roast and potatoes, made small talk about their lives, their jobs, the weather, normal things, pleasant things. Then, over coffee and dessert, I dropped the bomb. "I have some news," I said, setting down my cup. "I've decided what to do with the house." They both leaned forward, trying to look casual but failing miserably. "I've given it away," I continued, "to Angela Martinez, the nurse who took care of me in the hospital." For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then Patricia laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "Very funny, Mom, but seriously, I'm completely serious. The deed has been transferred. The house is no longer mine. It's hers." Michael's face went white, then red. "You can't do that. You can't just give away our inheritance. It was never your inheritance. It was mine to do with as I pleased. And it pleased me to give it to someone who actually cares about me as a person, not as a bank account." Patricia stood up, her chair scraping harshly against the floor. "This is insane. You're not in your right mind. We'll contest this. We'll have you declared incompetent." "Try it," I said calmly. "I've already anticipated that. I have letters from my doctor, from Edward Thornton, from multiple witnesses attesting to my mental competency. I've been evaluated by a psychiatrist. Everything is airtight. You won't win." "How could you do this to us?" Michael's voice was shaking with rage. "We're your children." "Then act like it," I shouted, finally letting my own anger show. "Act like children who love their mother, not vultures waiting for her to die. Do you know what it's like to lie in a hospital bed, terrified and alone, waiting for your children to visit? Do you know what it's like to hear them walk in and immediately start calculating your worth?" "We never—" Patricia started. "I heard you," I interrupted. "In the hospital. So who gets the house?" "That's what you said, Patricia. While I was lying there, barely able to breathe, you were already dividing up my possessions." The guilt on their faces was almost satisfying. Almost. "That was taken out of context," Michael said weakly. "Was it? Then explain the context to me, Michael. Explain how asking about inheritance while your mother is in the hospital is anything other than pure greed." They couldn't. They stood there, speechless, their masks finally fallen away completely. "Angela was there," I continued, my voice quieter now but no less firm. "Every single day. She held my hand, she brushed my hair. She talked to me like I was a human being, not a future payday. She earned this house in ways you'll never understand." "She manipulated you," Patricia spat. "She saw a lonely old woman and took advantage." "Don't you dare," I said, standing up. "Don't you dare project your own greed onto her. Angela didn't know I was wealthy. She didn't know about this house. She cared for me because that's who she is. Unlike you two, who only show up when there's something in it for you." "We're going to fight this," Michael said, his jaw set. "We're going to take you to court. We're going to prove she influenced you." "Good luck with that. Edward has documented everything. Every conversation, every decision, every evaluation. You'll spend whatever money you have left on lawyers, and you'll lose. But please, go ahead. Waste your resources. Prove to the world exactly what kind of people you are." They left in a fury. Patricia was screaming about betrayal and ingratitude. Michael was already on the phone with a lawyer. I watched them go and felt nothing but relief. The next day, they showed up with a moving truck. I was at Angela's, well, her house now, helping her measure the rooms for new furniture when my phone rang. It was Mrs. Patterson. "Vivian, you need to come home. Your children are here with movers. They're trying to get into the house." "Let them try," I said calmly. "The locks were changed yesterday." I drove back to Trad Street to find Patricia and Michael on the front porch, screaming at a locksmith they'd called. The locksmith looked uncomfortable, clearly caught in the middle of a family drama. "Ma'am," he was saying to Patricia, "I can't just break into a house without proof of ownership." "I'm telling you, this is my mother's house," Patricia shrieked. "Actually," I said, walking up the front steps, "it's not." They spun around. Michael's face was purple with rage. Patricia looked like she wanted to physically attack me. "You can't do this," Michael seethed. "You can't lock us out of our own mother's house." "It's not my house anymore, remember? I gave it away. Therefore, you're trespassing on private property. I'm sure the new owner would be happy to call the police if you don't leave." "This is theft," Patricia shouted. "Grand larceny. We're going to have you arrested." "For giving away my own property. Good luck with that." I turned to the locksmith. "Thank you for your time, but your services aren't needed. These people have no legal right to enter this house." The locksmith couldn't get out of there fast enough. He practically ran to his truck. "We're your children," Michael said, and for the first time I heard genuine pain in his voice. "How can you just cut us out like this?" "How can you?" I replied. "How can you look at your mother and see nothing but dollar signs? How can you ignore her when she's sick, but show up the minute she's well enough to sign papers? How can you live with yourselves?" "We're not perfect," Patricia said, her voice breaking, "but we're still your family." "Family shows up," I said, echoing Angela's words from months ago. "Family holds your hand when you're scared. Family loves you for who you are, not what you have. You two stopped being my family the day you decided I was worth more dead than alive." They stood there, finally speechless, finally understanding that they'd lost everything through their own greed. "If you contest the will, you'll get nothing," I continued. "Edward made sure of that. But if you walk away now, accept what's happened. I'll leave you each $50,000. It's more than you deserve, but I'm still your mother, and some habits are hard to break." I could see them calculating, weighing their options, pride versus pragmatism. In the end, pragmatism won. It always did with them. "Fine," Michael said finally. "We'll take it." "Smart choice. Edward will contact you with the details. Now please leave. You're upsetting the neighbors." They left. I never saw them again. Angela and her boys moved into the house 2 weeks later. I moved into the guest house at the back of the property, a cozy 2-bedroom cottage that was perfect for an old woman like me. We were neighbors now, family by choice, not blood. I'm 81 now, 8 years after all of this happened. Angela's boys are in college, one at medical school, one getting his teaching degree. The house is filled with life and laughter and love, real love. Not the counterfeit version I'd been accepting from my biological children. Patricia and Michael took their $50,000 and disappeared. I hear things occasionally through mutual acquaintances. They're still struggling, still making poor choices, still waiting for their big break. I sleep peacefully every night in my little cottage, knowing I made the right choice. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment. It's about rewarding the people who deserve it.